me this, but many of them have many diseases as well. I said, well, obviously something is not good in your life because you have these diseases. Here's the problem. What is good to one person in today's world is not good to the next. There's no one guideline that people are using to determine what good and bad is. So somebody could say, well, it's good for me to eat as much food as I want. Or it's good for me to go do this or go do that because it feels good to them. Well, we have to understand something. We can't go by what's good in our opinion. We have to go by a moral guideline and a moral code that's regardless of what we feel is the truth and is good or bad for everyone. And that moral guideline and code is Yahweh's word. It's His scriptures. And regardless of how you feel, of what food you think is best, or how much you think you can eat, or what you think you could do, or how you think you could live, the scriptures are the true guideline. And I can tell you, without even trying to judge people, without even trying to look at what people are doing, I see a lot of people living against the word of Scripture, and they think they're doing good, but they're really not. And it goes way beyond just diet alone. And this is many of the reasons we suffer. And this is many of the reasons why just as many people, if not more people, are sick within the churches and the congregations than out of it. Because remember James 4:17, to know good and not to do it, to him it is sin. One of the greatest lectures I ever heard was by Derek Prince. And Derek Prince was a really gifted speaker, and the title of his lecture was one of the most blessed I've ever heard. It was called Decision, Not Emotion. Decision, not emotion. The problem we have in today's world is people are living off emotion when we shouldn't be using this as our guideline. We should use this to warn us if something is wrong, but we should be living off our decisions, not our emotions. The reason why our emotions are dictating what's going on in this world, but it'll change every day based on how we feel. But when we live off a decision, regardless of what's happening on the outside, we don't change our decision. And when you've made that decision that His word is going to be your guideline, there's nothing that is emotionally going to change that. You're going to stick to that regardless of what. Like a rhinoceros heading towards its target. You can have guns firing at it, arrows shooting at it, and so on. But nothing's going to take it off what it's focused on. And we need to be focused on Yah's word, and we need to be focused on living out His commandments, and let nothing take us away from that. And we'll start experiencing the blessings that He has for us. As we said. Now, we look at His word, and we look at this very important concept we have, or why there's so much confusion about the scriptures. We look at the word Torah. We look at the word Torah and we see a big problem. The problem is, many people in today's world are taught that the word Torah means law. The word Torah does not mean law. The word Torah means guidelines and instructions. So we are not released from His guidelines and instructions, no matter who we are or where we are. But even if it did mean law, whose law is it? It's His. We go every day and we follow the civil law. We follow the government law. We stop at a red light because we don't want to get a ticket. If we pass that red light, it doesn't guarantee we're going to get in an accident, but it reduces the chances. So that law is there for our safety. And we follow other laws for our safety. Well, regardless if you think of it as a law, His guidelines or instruction is there for our safety. It's there for us to be blessed. And we need to understand and we need to follow it. However, not out of a thing of oh, we have to, but out of a thing of oh, we want to. Because we know it's right. And if we do that with that, we find joy in following it. And we're truly blessed for it. Because the Word says that the Word will set you free. And the people that don't understand that and are confused and stuck on this law and this isn't for me and all this, they're living a truly trapped life, and they don't really understand all of this. We look at some examples of people who followed the guidelines and instructions as found in the Torah. We look at the greatest example. We look at Yeshua himself. He followed this, and he taught others to follow these guidelines and instructions. You know, there's a saying today that says, what would Yeshua do? Well, he certainly wouldn't do what a lot of the believers are doing today. He wouldn't eat the way they're eating, and he wouldn't walk the way they walk, and he wouldn't talk the way they talk. He lived, and he told people to follow the Torah. When he was around, there was no new covenant. He was teaching people directly from the Torah. Then we look at the ancient Israelites. What they do? They lived according to the Torah. But when did disease set in? Disease set in when they started to get away from His word. When they started to get away from it, people began to suffer. We look at what it says in the Torah about health and disease. We look at a great example in Torah. We look at what it says is how many days man should live. The length of our lives. Because regardless of what we say, believe, or think, and even us believers that know we're going on to a wonderful, much better place after we leave this planet, we still want to be here as long as possible. And we should, because we have longer, more time to get the word out about Yeshua. So it's great to be here. However, how long should we be here? Well, the scriptures are clear on this. And I'm not saying that you're not righteous if you don't live to this age. But what I am saying is, maybe there's some things in our environment that we don't have control over that might cut our lifespan short by a couple of years. But 50 or 60 years, something is wrong. Something is missing. And it says in the scriptures, man's days should be 120 years old.
That's right.
120 years old, as it says in Genesis 6:3. Genesis 6:3 says, yet man's days should be 120 years old. We certainly have the capability of living to that age. During the scriptures time, man lived way beyond that, but we certainly have the capability of living that. But we look at a great example of somebody who followed the Torah, and somebody who did his best to follow it with joy. We look at Moses. We look at Moses. Does anyone have an idea how long Moses lived to?
120.
120 years old. Moses lived to 120 years old. Does anyone find that interesting that the scriptures say in the Torah, man's day should be 120 and Moses lived to 120? Let's look at an example of the people who were living with Moses in the desert and they started to disobey and get away from Yahweh's instructions. What was the average age of the people during Moses' time? Of the so-called chosen people? The average age, it tells us in Psalms 90:10. It says 70 years are given to us, some even live to 80. Their lifespan was cut short by 40 to 50 years. Why? Because they started to get away from the instruction guides of our Creator, and they started to suffer for that. And many people get that scripture wrong. It doesn't mean we should be living 70 and 80 years. It says during the time of Moses, that's how they lived, but it says in the Torah 120 years. We need to understand that. Now, here's something we need to get. The scriptures tell us clearly we can die before our appointed time. We have control over that. We can cease before our appointed time. It tells us right here in Ecclesiastes 7:17. Ecclesiastes 7:17 says, do not be a fool. Why die before your time? It tells us in Psalms 55:23, bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days. And it tells us again in Proverbs 10:27, the fear of Yahweh adds length to the life, and the years of the wicked are cut short. So we have control over this, and we can cease before our time. Now, we're looking for a long life, and we're looking for that shalom and that peace, and how do we get it? Well, again, we can look at Scripture and see what Scripture says about this. Scripture tells us in Proverbs 4:10, listen and receive my sayings. The years of your life shall be many. Listen and receive my sayings, and the years of your life shall be many. Then it tells in Proverbs 3:1, forget not my Torah, but let your heart guard my command. For the length of days, long life, and shalom shall they add to you. Listen, receive, and guard my commands. That's what we're instructed to do. To listen, receive, and to guard my commands. But we look at a problem we have. We look at disease in today's world. It doesn't go along with what our Creator wanted for us. The disease in today's world is rampant, and it's rampant among so-called believers. It's rampant among people that aren't believers. It's rampant among even people that are righteous and have a good heart. But they're not taking the time. The enemy has some way led them away from Yahweh's instruction guide, and they're suffering for it. And I tell you, it's not everyone who's suffering with disease that's not righteous, because there are some people out there that are truly suffering with a disease, that their lifespan is truly cut short, but only for the glory of Yeshua HaMashiach. However, it says many are called and few are chosen. And if you're sitting there eating McDonald's and Big Macs and so on, and smoking cigarettes, and you think you're one of those few chosen ones, I beg to differ, because it says in the scriptures we have to live an upright life. And we got to eat a diet that tells us according to Torah, we're going to talk about. And we have to live a moral life according to the Torah as it talks about. So if you are one of those people, you take joy.